Welcome back to On the Roll with Matt. After the last episode, I wanted to shift the atmosphere a little. The last conversation was heavy, and sometimes we have to talk about heavy things. We cannot pretend people are not struggling. We cannot pretend people are not tired. We cannot pretend that life does not take people into places mentally and emotionally that are hard to explain. But today, I do not want to stay in that place. Today, I want to talk about what we do before life gets that loud, before the pressure builds too high, before our mind starts turning against us, before isolation becomes routine, before we convince ourselves that silence is safer than honesty. Recently, I have seen conversations in the disability community that made me pause. People have been talking about how exhausting disability can be, how lonely it can feel, and how difficult it is when your body, your independence, or your future does not look the way you hoped it would. And as someone who lives with disability, I understand why those conversations happen. Disability can affect how you see your body. It can affect how you see your future. It can affect your confidence, your independence, your relationships, your energy, and your identity. There are days where it feels like you are constantly adapting, constantly adjusting, constantly trying to explain something that other people only see from the outside. And that can wear a person down. But I do not want this conversation to be only for the disability community. This is bigger than disability. This is for anyone who has been tired in a way sleep does not fix. This is for anyone who has been smiling in public and struggling in private. This is for the parent who is overwhelmed, the student under pressure, the caregiver who never gets a break, the person in recovery, the person grieving, the person dealing with anxiety, stress, trauma, loneliness, bills, uncertainty, or disappointment. This is for people who look fine from the outside, but know they are running on fumes inside. Because mental strain is not limited to one community. Pain can show up anywhere. And because of that, we need to talk about mental maintenance before we talk about crisis. We need to stop treating our mental health like something we only address when everything is already falling apart. We maintain so many things in life. We maintain our vehicles, we maintain our homes, we charge our phones before they die, we check our calendars so we do not miss appointments. We take care of work, responsibilities, bills, and other people. But when it comes to our minds, sometimes we ignore every warning sign until we are completely drained. We say, I'm fine, when we are not. We say, I'll deal with it later, when later keeps getting pushed further away. We say, I should be stronger, when what we really need is support, rest, wisdom, and honesty. And I think that is where people can get into trouble. Not all at once, slowly. A little more isolation, a little less patience, a little more frustration, a little less sleep, a little more scrolling, a little less connection, a little more pretending. And before long, you are living in a version of yourself that feels distant, exhausted, and disconnected from the person you know you can be. That is why we need guardrails. Guardrails are not a sign of weakness, they are a sign of wisdom. A guardrail does not mean the road is bad. It means there are certain turns where protection is needed. And all of us have those turns. For some people, a guardrail is therapy. For some, it is prayer. For some, it is recovery meetings. For some, it is medication. For some, it is a trusted friend who can ask honest questions. For some, it is journaling, exercise, better sleep, time outside, creative work, boundaries, or stepping away from the constant noise online. Your guardrails do not have to look like mine, but you need something that keeps you connected to truth when your emotions start getting louder than your perspective. Because when we are tired, discouraged, or overwhelmed, our thoughts can become convincing. A thought can feel true just because it is loud. A feeling can feel permanent just because it is intense. A bad season can start looking like the whole story if we never step back and let someone help us see it differently. That is why the voices we listen to are so important. We live in a time where everyone has access to a platform, but not everyone has wisdom. Someone can have followers and still be speaking from an unhealed place. Someone can be relatable and still not be safe to take direction from. Someone can describe pain accurately and still offer no path toward healing. And when you are already worn down, you have to be careful about what you keep feeding your mind. I am not saying people should stop talking honestly about suffering. I actually think we need more honest conversations. We need less pretending. We need less shame. We need more room for people to say, I am struggling, without being dismissed or judged. But honesty should not leave people stranded. Real honesty should make room for hope. Real honesty should make room for help. Real honesty should make room for another option. And that is what I want to bring to the table today. Another option. If life has been heavy, there is another option besides disappearing into silence. There is another option besides pretending you are okay. There is another option besides letting an online voice define what is possible for your future. There is another option besides believing every thought that shows up when you are exhausted. Sometimes the other option is simple but difficult. Send the message, make the call, book the appointment, go back to counseling, talk to your doctor, go to the meeting, tell the truth to someone who has earned your trust. Say, I have not been doing well. Say, I need help. Say, I do not want to keep pretending. That kind of honesty can feel uncomfortable, but it can also become a turning point. And for those of us who are used to being strong, honesty can feel almost unnatural because some of us have learned how to function while hurting. We know how to show up, we know how to joke, we know how to answer messages, we know how to keep going, we know how to make everyone else comfortable while something inside us is running on empty. But there is a difference between strength and survival mode. Strength can ask for help. Survival mode just keeps pushing until there is nothing left. And I do not want us to confuse the two. Sometimes fighting for your life does not look dramatic. Sometimes it looks ordinary. It looks like going to bed earlier because you know your mind gets worse when you are exhausted. It looks like eating something because your body cannot run on stress and caffeine forever. It looks like going outside for 10 minutes because your nervous system needs a different environment. It looks like taking a break from social media because comparison and hopelessness have been feeding each other. It looks like telling one trusted person, I am not okay today. It looks like sitting in a counselor's office and finally saying the thing you have been avoiding. It looks like asking someone to check in on you this week. It looks like choosing not to make permanent conclusions during a temporary storm. Those steps may look small, but small steps can interrupt a spiral. Small steps can reopen a door. Small steps can remind you that you are still here, still breathing, still capable of reaching toward something better than silence. For me, faith is part of that. God is part of how I stay anchored. Prayer helps me return to center when life feels bigger than my ability to manage it. But I know not everyone watching shares my faith. So maybe for you, grounding looks different. Maybe it is therapy. Maybe it is nature. Maybe it is meditation. Maybe it is music. Maybe it is recovery work. Maybe it is community. Maybe it is service. Maybe it is having one person in your life who knows how to ask, how are you really doing? And waits long enough for the honest answer. The point is not that everyone has to use the same anchor. The point is that we all need one. We need something that brings us back when life starts pulling us too far inward. We need people who know the real version of us, not just the polished version, not just the funny version, not just the version that says, I'm good, the real version, the one that gets tired, the one that gets scared, the one that gets frustrated, the one that needs perspective, the one that needs support. And if you love someone who has been distant, quiet, irritable, or different lately, do not assume they are fine just because they are still functioning. Check in, ask better questions, listen without rushing to fix everything. Do not make someone feel guilty for being honest. Sometimes people do not need a perfect answer. They need a safe place to speak without being treated like a burden. That kind of presence can shift the direction of someone's day. So, yes, this conversation started with what I have been seeing in the disability community, but it does not end there. This is for everyone because your life is worth fighting for. Not only when things become dramatic, not only when someone notices your pain, not only when you hit a crisis point. Your life is worth fighting for in the quiet, ordinary decisions that keep you connected to hope. So build the guardrails. Choose your voices wisely. Check your inner weather. Pay attention to the warning signs. Tell the truth sooner. Let someone know where you are. And if you are in immediate crisis or afraid of where your thoughts are going, in the US and Canada, you can call or text 988 and speak with someone right away. But before it ever gets to that point, start caring for your mind with the same seriousness you would give to someone you love. Because you are still here. Your story is still being written, and a heavy season does not get to decide the ending. Thanks for coming back to On the Roll with Matt. If this spoke to you, like the video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who may need the reminder to check in with themselves before life gets too loud. I'll see you next time.